Hi, so this month's topic is loss. And if you've never come across this before, at Mindsnaps we use photography to make it easier to talk about mental health and mental wellness. Each month we have a topic to discuss, but also to try to take a photograph of. And this month's topic, as I said, is loss. Now me and Steve's our psychotherapist, we've already done a video of us discussing this topic in depth. So if you haven't seen that already, then I'll put a link to that somewhere up here. But this video is about how I have taken my image, and I'll show you how I captured it, but also how I also edit the image afterwards. And like I said, the topic's loss, and I found it quite hard to connect on a sort of personal level because, touch wood, I've not really had anyone sort of pass away which has been very close to me. My parents are still here. Obviously I've had pets and elderly relatives pass away, but I found it quite hard to connect deeply. I know obviously loss doesn't always have to be a death. It can be, jobs and all sorts of stuff, relationships. But I did find it quite hard to do that. But my idea was for a photo was to have me sat on a bench with one of my dogs sat next to me. Because what I want to do is show the almost like a ghost-like appearance of the dog. This is the important bit. Still see the stuff behind the dog coming through the dog to make it look realistic. So to do this, you take two photos. So for example, I'm sat on a bench with a dog, that's one photo. And then I take a second photo where the dog disappeared and the bench is still there. And now the important thing to do this is you'll need a tripod, because ideally you don't want the camera to move at all. You don't want anything to move apart from the dog or me and the dog to be taken out away from the photo. So let me just show you how this is done. Now I use Photoshop, but I would recommend, if you haven't got Photoshop, that you can easily use a thing called GIMP. It stands for GNU Image Manipulation Program, and it's completely free of charge, and it's laid out very similar to Photoshop, because what you're going to need is a photo editing software which has got layers, so the ability to lay two photos on top of each other and to manipulate one to then show the other one coming through. So that's what you need, and GIMP will do that, and it's completely free of charge. But as I said, we're going to be using Photoshop. Okay, so the first thing we do in Photoshop, we go to File, then Scripts, and we go to Load Files into Stack. And then we go to Browse and we find the two images which I need. And now there's a little button here which says attempt to automatically align source images. Now we don't need to do that because we've used a tripod. But if you did have two images which weren't on a tripod, then you would tick that, and Photoshop's clever enough to try to work out from the objects in the image and align them correctly on top of each other. But as I said, we don't need to do that. So all we've done is selected those two images and we press OK. So if you're wondering the settings that I used when I took this photo, when I used an 85mm lens, I did that because it's a nice prime lens, it's very sharp, so it's got a lot of detail in it. Now I use 1/100th of a second because I didn't want any blur, especially for dogs moving around, so I needed fairly fast shutter speed. Also chose f11 because I wanted